You're 26 years old with 2 combat tours and a skill set the regular army doesn't know what to do with. A man in a gray suit meets you at a Denny's outside Fort Bragg and slides a business card across the table. No name on it, just a phone number and a government seal you don't recognize. He says he's heard good things. He says the pay is better and the rules are different. 3 weeks later, you're at Camp Perry, a place the agency calls the farm, learning things that don't appear in any field manual. How to build a cover identity that withstands a foreign intelligence service running a background check. How to kill someone in a way that looks like natural causes. You're good at all of it, top of your class. Which is why they pull you out early and move you to a building that doesn't appear on any map. Your first assignment is a dead drop in Budapest. You fly commercial under a Canadian passport. Pick up an envelope from a bench near the Danube. Inside is $10,000 in mixed euros and a photograph of a man. On the back, someone has written a name, a city, and a date.
Chapter 2. The First Job.
The target is a mid-level Iranian nuclear scientist living in Vienna under a German alias. You're told he's about to sell enrichment data to Russian intelligence. You're told this makes him a threat to national security. You're told a lot of things, and you believe them because believing them makes what comes next possible. You spend 3 weeks learning his routine. Espresso at the same cafe every morning at 7:15. A woman in the 9th District on Tuesdays and Thursdays, always arriving at 8 p.m., always leaving by 11. He walks home along the same route every night, cutting through a park where the streetlights don't reach the path near the canal. You make it look like a mugging, wallet, watch, briefcase, all gone. 2 stab wounds from a knife you bought at a flea market that morning. He takes about 4 minutes to die. You stand in the shadows and watch because your training says you confirm the kill. His phone rings twice while he bleeds out. When you check the phone, the screen says marry him with a heart emoji next to it. You fly out that afternoon on a British passport with a name you'll never use again. Back at Langley, you file your report. Nobody mentions the scientist again. You get a $15,000 bonus deposited into an account that doesn't have your name on it. Chapter 3. The Program. 2 years in, you're running assets across 3 countries, recruiting informants in coffee shops and hotel lobbies, bribing border officials, building networks of people who will betray their governments for American dollars and vague promises of protection. You discover the agency is funding a militia group in northern Syria. On paper, they're a strategic counterbalance to Iranian influence. On the ground, they're burning villages and executing prisoners. You see the satellite imagery. You read the field reports that never make it into the official briefings. Women, children, entire families. Your handler tells you civilian casualties are within acceptable parameters. He actually uses those words. Acceptable parameters, like the dead, are a line item on a budget spreadsheet. They send you to train the militia's commanders. Interrogation techniques you were taught are illegal under the Geneva Convention. Stress positions, sensory deprivation, waterboarding. You write reports that describe torture as enhanced debriefing and extrajudicial killings as kinetic resolutions. As long as the right words are in the right boxes, nobody in Washington has to know what's actually happening in a concrete room, in a country most Americans can't find on a map. Chapter 4. The Black Site. 5 years in, you're running a black site in a country whose government officially denies your existence. The facility is a converted warehouse on the outskirts of a city. You're not allowed to name in a report. You're not allowed to file. Detainees arrive hooded and shackled on unmarked planes that land on unregistered airstrips. No names, no charges, no lawyers, no Red Cross visits. As far as the world is concerned, these people simply vanished. You oversee interrogations that produce intelligence briefings delivered directly to the White House. You've never met the president, but you've read his handwriting in the margins of your reports. Good work. Need more on this. Who authorized this? That last one gets redacted before it comes back down the chain. One detainee turns out to be a schoolteacher, grabbed by a local militia your agency pays. Wrong house, wrong neighborhood, wrong time. You know within the first 48 hours he's nobody. He teaches mathematics to 12-year-olds. Your deputy suggests releasing him quietly, a blindfolded drive and a drop on a back road. You overrule him. Releasing the man would expose the facility, the flight routes, the country you're operating in. 8 months, in a concrete cell with no windows and no explanation. He stops eating in month 3. He stops speaking in month 5. By month 7, he sits in the corner rocking back and forth reciting multiplication tables to no one. When you finally dump him on a roadside outside a man, he can't remember his children's names. You write in your report that the subject was released without incident and request approval for 6 new detainees. The approval comes back in 4 hours. Chapter 5. The Asset. In your files, he's Cardinal. In reality, he's a senior official inside a foreign government's intelligence directorate, and he's been feeding you information worth more than every other source in the region combined. Troop movements, weapons, programs, internal power struggles, assassination plans. You recruited him yourself over the course of 14 months. You promised him extraction if things went bad, a house in Virginia, new identities for his family. You looked him in the eye and gave him your word. Things go bad on a Tuesday. A mole inside your own station sells a list of asset names to the opposition. Cardinal is on it. You send an emergency extraction request to Langley. Priority 1. Immediate action required. Langley takes 36 hours to respond. The response is 1 paragraph. Cardinal is to be disavowed. No extraction, no acknowledgement. The intelligence assessment says his capture and interrogation will provide useful disinformation opportunities. His death, if it comes to that, will generate sympathy in Congress for increased funding. You could ignore the order. You have the contacts, the safe houses, the extraction routes. You could get him out in 12 hours if you moved now. Instead, you close the message and pour yourself a drink, because saving him means burning yourself, and you stopped being the kind of person who makes that trade a long time ago. You watch via satellite as his house is raided at 4 a.m., armored vehicles on a quiet residential street. His wife and 2 daughters are still inside. The feed is grainy, but you can see enough. You watch for 11 minutes. Then the feed cuts out. Your handler sends a message. Asset burned. Move to next objective. You close your laptop and move to the next objective. Chapter 6. The Contractor. 8 years in, the agency starts outsourcing. Private military contractors, with names that sound like consulting firms. Guys in polo shirts who carry guns that don't have serial numbers and answer to shareholders instead of senators. You're assigned to supervise a team of 12 contractors operating completely off the books, funded through shell companies registered in the Cayman Islands. They start running side operations almost immediately. Drug shipments moving through corridors your agency cleared of opposition. Arms deals with buyers who are technically on the other side of whatever conflict you're managing that month. You report it up the chain. Your supervisor reads your report, sets it down on his desk, and tells you to stop asking questions and focus on deliverables. He says the contractors provide capabilities the agency needs but can't officially maintain. He says this with a straight face and a coffee mug that says "World's Best Dad." The drug money and the arms deals. That's how they pay for operations that Congress never voted on and the public will never hear about. Your signature is on documents that authorize payments to people who are technically on the terrorist watch list. Chapter 7. The Investigation. A Senate Intelligence Committee staffer starts pulling threads. She's filed FOIA requests, targeting black budget line items. She's interviewing whistleblowers. She's auditing classified expenditure reports that were never supposed to be audited by anyone ever. You're ordered to monitor her emails, her phone calls, her meetings with journalists at restaurants in Georgetown. You build a file on her the way you've built files on targets across 3 continents. You learn her patterns. She gets coffee at 6:45 a.m. She calls her mother every Sunday. She's sleeping with a married colleague on the committee, a detail you photograph from a parked car across the street from his apartment in Arlington. You pull her medical records, prescription for anxiety medication. Her sister overstayed a student visa in 2014 and is living in Baltimore without documentation. You compile everything into a dossier and send it to Langley. You don't know what they do with it. The investigation quietly dies 3 weeks later, after her supervisor receives a visit from someone who never gives his name and never signs the visitor log. Chapter 8. The Reckoning. 15 years in, you've operated in 23 countries under 14 different identities. You speak 4 languages fluently and can pass for a native in 3 of them. You've killed people on 4 continents and facilitated killings on the other 2. The 26-year-old from Fort Bragg feels like a character in a movie you saw a long time ago. Someone earnest and stupid who believed in things. A former asset you burned 3 years ago shows up on a kill list that crosses your desk. Then another. Then a third. The agency is cleaning house, tying off loose ends. Anyone who knows too much and no longer serves a purpose is being reclassified from asset to liability. You realize with a calm that surprises you that this process will eventually include you, so you start copying files. Operational records, payment ledgers, surveillance logs, kill orders with signatures from people who appear on Sunday morning talk shows. You encrypt everything and distribute it across servers in countries that don't cooperate with American intelligence. A dead man's switch. If you stop checking in, everything goes public. You're doing exactly what every target you've ever hunted has done. Building insurance, running contingencies, looking over your shoulder. Chapter 9. The Debrief. You sit in a windowless room at Langley for your annual psychological evaluation. The psychologist across from you has a notepad and a security clearance and no idea what you actually do. She knows you work in special programs. She doesn't know what that means. Nobody with a clean conscience knows what that means. She asks if you have trouble sleeping. You say no. She asks if you feel fulfilled in your role. You say yes. She checks a box. You're cleared for another year of service. Outside, the Virginia sun is too bright, and the parking lot smells like asphalt and cut grass. Somewhere in a training facility down the road, a new recruit is being handed a Canadian passport and an envelope with $10,000 and a photograph of a man. On the back, someone has written a name, a city, and a date. The recruit will ask what the man did. The handler will say that's above their pay grade. You get in your car and drive home to a house with no photographs on the walls.